Um, I wanted to do this quick little video because it's something that has been coming up a lot, things that I've been watching over the last few days. It's been mentioned over and over and over again, and the understanding of it, the interpretation of it, and everything that I've watched has been wrong. So I want to correct it as an occult scientist. Obviously, when we build the foundation and we start making our TV shows, when I do the Art of Creation, the animated series, we'll talk about this sort of thing. And I want to do my show Occult Private Eyes, where we continue talking about the unexplained, the unsolved mysteries, the yada yada blah blah blah. I've got whole characters built around it and everything, to make it fun but educational as well, and whatever it is that we produce for the TV shows for my streaming service. So I want to talk about the subject of the succubi and incubi, or succubus and incubus. Succubus and incubus are quote unquote demons that appear to you in your sleep. The succubi are women who seduce men in their sleep, to have sexual encounters, and the incubi are male demons who go to women in their sleep. Now, I've actually studied this for well over 30 years, and I've interviewed a lot of people because I've had to help a lot of people deal with encounters with the succubi and incubi. There was one, he was in the military, in the American military. He was in the army, and he had a succubus wife. Sorry, oh gosh, I apologise. No, he was in the Australian army. I apologise. He was in the Australian army, and he had a succubus for a wife. Who only ever came to him when he was in bed, asleep, blah, blah, blah. And I studied him extensively. This is something that I have been researching since I was a teenager, because I grew up with 90% of my friends were male. I've had more male friends in my life than female friends. I just get on with men better. And so, as a kid, knowing what I was, knowing what my family were, and having an interest in this sort of thing, not realizing that it was all going to be turning me into an occult scientist where I'd be building an empire around the paranormal and supernatural, to educate people correctly through the means of entertainment, video games and movies and books and stories and all of that. Like, that's what I've done. That's what my sons and I are producing, teaching people the right way to understand this stuff. Because it's the one thing, if there's one thing that things like the Illuminati and devil worshippers and that have forced me to have to do on behalf of my ancestors, is correct a lot of things that my Egyptian ancestors got wrong, but also the things that people have taken from my Egyptian ancestors, and even with the Bible, misconstrued it or used it in the wrong way to turn it into something dangerous and fearful and harmful and fatalistic, to be honest, for people dabbling in the occult. So I'm an occult scientist. I'm a high priestess. I'm an indigenous reverend. I'm a gatekeeper. I was sent here to teach people how to do it the right way so that they can protect themselves from the things that are harmful to them and their spiritual development, which is the paranormal. Now, a lot of people will say that the incubi succubi situation, that it's a supernatural event, but it's not. Supernatural doesn't involve demons like that. Demons are a manifestation of an imbalance in the mind. And the one thing that I found over and over and over again with every single case I worked on with a succubus and incubus was that they were all people who suffered from extreme loneliness. Even if they were in relationships, even if they were in bed with their spouse, they would have encounters with their incubus or succubus. Because, upon asking further questions during my investigations and such, I discovered that these were men and women who were lonely, who were looking for love, who manifested sexual encounters with things out of sheer loneliness. And I would probably have to say a good 95% of these people were diagnosed with bipolar at some point in their adult life. Incubus and succubi are a manifestation of the imbalance of the paranormal mind. When it's paranormal, it's harmful, it's dangerous, it's scary. It takes you to things like devil worship. It takes you to things like self-harm. It takes you to places where you manifest things that torment your soul, that torment your life, or you walk into situations where paranormal events have occurred, like demonic possessions, exorcisms, murders, like how people will claim to walk into places where there's been historical grief events, and that where they will take on or embody the energy of the murderer or the murder victim or blah 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 and act possessed and all that sort of thing. For the most part, I think some of it is for the camera, but of the genuine ones, it is possible for highly sensitive people, your creative, empathic people, to go to places where these historical events have taken place, and absorb it and take it on. But like manifestations of the dead, they are extremely rare cases. Supernatural events are undeniable events that involve God and faith and science. They can't be disputed. The paranormal is constantly disputed because so little is understood about it, because people don't understand that paranormal events, we create them. We trigger them or we create them. We walk into them and absorb them and reflect them back, or we create them. We manifest it within ourselves, and we, using like kinetic energy, telekinesis, telekinetic energy, we push it out. We push out what we manifest, whereas the supernatural is purely like biblical events, like events that can be explained through your faith, through your religion, and through science. And that's what I'm here to do as an occult scientist. I'm teaching people the difference between the supernatural and the paranormal, because the paranormal can only exist within the frequencies of the Schumann resonance, whereas the supernatural, you can only experience them by stepping outside of the Schumann resonance. I put a post up yesterday with people saying, with Trump getting involved in everything, that everybody's about to go through an ascension, and spreading all this disinformation, and it's just wrong, and it's giving people false hope. It's wrong. Supernatural events like supernatural events occur in order to either solidify your faith, prove your faith, or turn you towards God. Okay, even paranormal events can happen if you're strong enough, if you've been chosen to have your soul saved, and you have paranormal experiences. God can come down with his hand and pull you out of the paranormal into the supernatural, because people who go through ascensions are sinners. Like all angels are sinners. They start off sinners and they become so converted by the strength of supernatural love, by the love of their God, that they ascend and become angels and want to take up weapons and fight for God, and proclaim their allegiance and loyalty and love and God and faith and religion and all that sort of thing. That's supernatural. People are believing that, all these floods, it's because, God and ascensions and all that sort of thing, because they're not strong enough to understand the fact that their own governments would be doing these things to them, that it has to be a supernatural event. But it's not true. There's a false narrative out there about how everybody thinks they're just going to wake up one day after Trump becomes president and everybody's got supernatural powers and that, but it's not true. If you've got supernatural powers after an ascension, you were born with them. You're mentioned in historical text. The gods, history has been waiting for you to be produced by your ancestors so that you can grow up, born, raised, enhancing and learning and understanding your powers. You don't just wake up one day and have an ascension just because a president became president. I mean, no offense to my Trumpy boy, but like he's not the second coming. He's not God. He's not any of that. He's a man that God put in charge to be the president to save America. He's teetering on the edge with some of the people that he's got associated with him, but that's not my business. I have to get him to his inauguration, and that's it. Who he chooses to be around, like the consequences are on him after that point. But um, supernatural events are undeniable events that can be proven either through historical or religious text and science. It's faith and physics, basically, is the supernatural, whereas the paranormal can't be explained. People don't understand it. It's why the Victorians were fascinated with it. It's why, for the last 50, 60 years of TV and radio and programs and all of that, it's been solely focused on trying to understand the paranormal because they don't understand it. But that's because their minds aren't open enough to know the difference between the supernatural and the paranormal. And unfortunately, religion, the church especially, has a lot to answer for that, because they're so afraid of people having access to the supernatural, because they know if they do, they no longer need church and priests and offerings and that sort of thing. Like in the book of Revelations, God says that at the end of it, by the time the second coming of Christ comes, he's doing away with churches, and that he wants your heart to be your temple. He wants you to pray and go to church in your heart, in your home, because he's going to reveal all these supernatural events that will be the proof of the existence of God, whatever name you want to give your God, but it will be undeniable, and then people will turn away from the indoctrination of faith and start finding their faith themselves. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm in the Bible. That's why I'm in the Quran and all of my bloodline. We're there because our ancestors were preparing my bloodline to be able to put it all out there to educate people. And what you need to understand is that if you have a succubi or incubi in your life or in someone else's life, they're not happy, they're not healthy. Mentally, they're not healthy. It's the manifestation of a lonely mind, and they manifest this attention. Anybody that says, he left me for a succubus, you can say that as a joke, but succubi aren't real human flesh people. If your lover's been tempted away by, the allure of another woman, and she's, leather and lace and bondage and blah, 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 and you're pure and sweet and innocent, she's not a succubus, she's just a whore, and he fell for it, like he's not loyal. She's not loyal. If she left the hard-working, loyal, traditional husband, for the man that grabs her by the throat, in order to please her and all that sort of thing, he's not an incubus. She's just, you weren't enough for her, and she was tempted and lured by sin, because that's what it is. You can embody sin in the flesh, but it doesn't make you a succubus. It just makes you a homewrecker. It makes you a whore, or what's the man version of a whore? A himbo. So if that's the case, thank God that you were saved from somebody who was fake. If you being loyal and honest and true and faithful and dedicated wasn't enough for them, that they had to go off and have something that was, dangerous and fetishistic and the BDSM and all that sort of thing, then they were never true to themselves and they were never true to you. So be grateful for the fact that God took them from your life. You don't need that. There's always someone out there for everyone. I'm a traditional woman. I have the traditional values, and I'm not settling for anything less than a man who shares the same traditional values. The man that can chop wood and protect me and my kids from harm, and all that sort of thing. The old fashioned masculine man, and not the man that spends more time in the bathroom getting ready than I do, so that he can run off and be with something that's saturated in leather and lace. If I want to wear leather and lace for my man, um, it's going to be for a purpose and not to tempt him away from another woman, because I'm not a homewrecker. But the reason why I say that is because one of the videos I was watching, the the man that left the woman left for someone who was referred to as a succubus, um, and that she uses sex to lure him, to drain his energy and blah blah blah. But it's not true. She just, I want him, I can have him, so I'm going to get him, you know. And don't be upset when that happens, ladies or men. Like, if that happens, don't be upset. Be grateful, because you were saved from something far worse. If he or she was able to leave you for something that twisted and dangerous, what else were they hiding from you? So be grateful for it. Just like wave it off and say, yeah, okay, bye. Because they say rejection is God's protection, but rejection is also ancestral selection. Your ancestors will not let anybody near you that doesn't deserve to have you if your heart is in a good place. So if they've gone off to other things that were sins of the flesh, then let them have it, because they're entering into the the darker side of spiritual development that you don't need to be going down. You're being saved from, going down a dark, twisted road. You don't need her energy or his energy or that kind of energy in your energy if you're trying to be a better person. So a succubi and an incubi. The succubi you cannot get pregnant to a dead person. You cannot impregnate a dead person. You cannot get pregnant by a spirit. You cannot impregnate a spirit, regardless of what the Bible says or any religion says. As with any ghost or poltergeist activity or demonic possessions, and that it is all manifest from the imbalance of an unstable mind, usually under the control of, or under the frequency of, the Schumann resonance, which is absolutely able to be controlled by machines, by AI technology, by bioweaponry, by satellites, TV, radio, air frequencies, all of that sort of stuff. It can all be turned on up and down by the police, by the doctors, by the government, by anyone that wants to put thoughts in your head or make you appear crazy, or the power of suggestion, because obviously if they're able to make you act crazy, they can give you the prescriptions to make money off selling you the drugs, because obviously doctors are paid per prescription, per pill they give out. So if they can make people appear crazy and do all these silly things thinking that they're having these spirits and these voices and these blah blah blah, then they have reasons to force medicate you and either send you down the fast track to hell, as in like a psychological hell of addictions where you can't get off the medications and stuff, suicidal. Yeah, trust me, because I've studied this all, especially in my situation when I was locked up. I got to observe and watch and learn from everyone around me, to prepare me for my future, or it's to give you labels so that they can be justified in putting your children or your partner or your whatever on medication in order to be able to control them. It's all about controlling what you think and how you act, excuse me, and how you feel, in order to be able to govern your emotions and your reactions through mind control and medication prescriptions. Now, this sounds crazy, but if you go to my X, if you go to my Instagram, I've got all the science, I've got all the scientific reviews, I've got the statements from the CIA, from even like the Scottish police who have admitted that they have the machines in that where they can fire it at your head and tell you what to think and feel and act and all of that. So all these acts of public insanity you see of just people out of nowhere attacking people with weapons and all of that, it's all done on purpose. It's all done by design to instill fear, because once you're afraid, you look for answers in your government and your police, and then you're basically inviting them in to control your narrative. And once they control your narrative, that's when they bring in the laws and that to lock you down. So if I educate you and I show you how to deal with these things yourself, you don't need anybody else. You don't need to go to anyone else. And when my boys and I get out of here and I get my radio station set up, I'll be doing my podcasts, and we'll be going around, because I'll be doing investigations for writing material for my Occult Private Eye show, for the Art of Creation TV series, for our streaming service and all of that. So then I'll be able to put all of it up there as well, and then do my podcast or my talkback radio, where I'll be talking about these things, and then I can invite people to message in and ask questions and that, and I'll answer them live on the radio show, because I'll set it up so that when I'm talking, people can, put messages in the message box, do like a live show. So that's, Succubus and Incubus. They are the manifestations of the imbalance of a unhealthy psychological mind, unhealthy, and people underestimate the power of the human mind, and our biometric frequency is connected to the universe on levels of which most scientists are only just starting to grapple, that I've been saying for years. Science is now starting to understand where I'm coming from. They're all starting to come out and say, "Oh, yeah, she was right. She was right about that. Like, it is a real thing. We've known about it since the 80s, or blah blah blah." So I've got a whole pile of scientists now that, like I said in my last video, I can back up in court now to prove that I was right about everything, that I wasn't making any of it up, that it is all true science, that it all really does happen, and that it wasn't insanity. It's just that my accusers and my abusers were just uneducated fools who thought that because they had PhDs and bachelor's degrees and these professions and careers that had Your Honour and Judge and detective and whatever after their names, that they knew more than an uneducated Indigenous woman. But now I have people from the CIA and even the British police force and that, who have handed me material to prove that I was right about everything, and that the mental health, especially psychiatrists, and that they don't know anything, that their understanding of mental health is probably 200 years old. Like, they've learnt nothing. They haven't advanced along with the technology that's available, that has been used to manipulate people, which makes you wonder, are they themselves manipulated? Because the lack of understanding that psychiatrists and psychologists and the mental health institutions have, their lack of how little they actually know about the truth of what's out there, is so shocking to me that it forced me to have to speak up and say, this needs to stop. So in spite of everything that I was put through while I was being locked up, I was still putting the science out there. I was still putting it out there, knowing that eventually everything I put out there would grow enough to be compiled into a case to be used against them when I take them to court for cruel and unusual punishment, for torture. I was tortured, for the denial of my human rights, for the denial of my Indigenous rights. They broke the Equality Act, the Indigenous Rights Act, like that. So many laws were broken with them defending their egos by not admitting they didn't know a lick of what I was talking about, because they haven't even begun to delve into the science of what's really out there in order to be able to confuse, harm, and control the imbalanced minds. And the other thing I found is that it seems to be people who are vaccinated who are the most vulnerable to these psychological attacks. So this is something that I have studied for a long time, and I'm telling you, do not be fooled by what is out there. You know, I am only allowed to speak the truth. I am not allowed to lie. A succubi and incubi, they are not real. They are manifestations of the psychological mind, of an imbalanced psychological mind, which is the paranormal. The paranormal can only be created through the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. The subconscious mind is not aware of what it is creating if there is no balance between the conscious and subconscious mind. If you had a balanced conscious mind, you would immediately know that what you were experiencing or what you were creating wasn't right and wasn't good for you. And then your instincts would kick in and you would have that immediate reaction to get away from it. That's how you know that your conscious mind is kicking in, but a subconscious mind feeds off it. They need more. They have to experience more, because it feeds the fear, it feeds the insecurity, it feeds the unknown, and that's the subconscious mind. When your subconscious mind isn't balanced, it feeds on fear because it lives on fear. And you can be fed that fear by things around you, in your biomagnetic field, i.e. the people you're around, the places you're around, the situations you're around. And that is what a succubus and incubus demon are. They're created by people who are very lonely, even if you love your partner, even if you're faithful and loyal to them, if they work a lot, if you're not getting a lot of attention from them, if you're feeling excluded or secluded from them, if you're feeling like they're withdrawing from you. I have never, ever met a happy person who was happy and love and a fruitful, loving relationship that was give and take where they conjured a succubus or incubus. It's only ever people who have been in unhappy relationships or who were single and very lonely. So there you go. That's the difference. The difference between the supernatural and the paranormal is that the supernatural is divine. The supernatural is faith and religion, and as in your connection to God, whoever you name him. But the paranormal is divine and divide, because the paranormal splits your psyche. It creates a divide between the subconscious and the conscious, faith and fear, fact and fiction, So that's what I'm here for. So I wanted to put that out there because it's really important that people know that, because it's been coming up a lot, and I'm an intuitive podcaster. So I took that as a sign that this needed to be talked about. So there you go. If you have any questions, you know where I am. Mwah.